What's up, everybody? It's another episode of America's Hometown Horror. And again, tonight's episode is brought to you by Clark's, pairs of shoes that I actually own and wear pretty frequently. Clark's story, in case you haven't heard it, began almost 200 years ago when Cyrus and James Clark made a slipper from sheepskin. Very interesting. At the time, it was groundbreaking, a combination of invention and craftsmanship that's remained at the heart of what Clark's does. From the very beginning, Clark's has always thought differently. Brilliant ideas are what sets Clark's apart. America's Hometown Horror is teaming up with Clark's and Podgo to bring you up to 30% off on select items, including the iconic Clark's Desert Boot, which, again, I own myself. Just go on to podgo.co. That's podgo.co/Clark's. That's podgo.co/Clark's. And get up to 30% off on select pairs of shoes, including the iconic Clark's Desert Boots. And away we go, folks. Normally, this is the part where you would hear some music or some sort of sound effect, but testing out the live stream tonight, so we don't have a way of inserting that. But my name is Mike. Thanks for tuning into the first ever live episode that we've done of America's Hometown Horror. Hopefully you're out there watching on YouTube or Facebook. And as always, I'm not alone here. I am joined by my co-hosts. I got a couple of people here with me to start off. My normal co-hosts, Kat and Andrew. What's going on, you two?
Hey.
Give everybody a nice wave. It might be the first time that people have seen some of our faces out there.
Live.
Live. Put a face with a voice, you know?
Exactly. And you obviously know that sometimes we have guests on, and you can see one of those guests right now. It's our good buddy, Shaun from You're Not Listening, a music podcast. Thanks for coming on, pal. What's going on?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, no, happy to have you, man.
Talk about some horror. Haven't talked about horror in a while.
I know. It's definitely, I know your show is definitely a little bit different than what we do, which is, a very an awesome music podcast that I listen to. But for those who might not know, why don't you tell us a little bit about You're Not Listening and some of the stuff that you guys cover?
Sure. So You're Not Listening is a music podcast. We talk about specific songs. So the basic story behind it is I was raised by a DJ. My dad was a mobile DJ my whole life, and he knows music really well, and he forced music down our throats. And it was, growing up, it was always, hey, have you heard this song? Let me tell you why this song's awesome. Let's talk about it. And let me talk about, you think you don't like this song, but let me tell you why I do. These are the little things that I noticed. And we would have these really long kind of involved conversations. And one day I was like, this is what I do. Like, podcasting is my job. I'm producer, editor, consultant, host. And so I said, Dad, we should be recording these conversations. And he said, no one wants to hear that, but you'd be surprised. I think we have some pretty interesting conversations. So what we do is every episode, I bring a song to the table. My dad brings a song to the table. We listen to it together, and then we just talk about it, and we go through the song and talk about what makes it great and any personal stories we have with it, and just kind of, just break it down. And we've gotten some really interesting stuff in there. We do all genres, classical, rock and roll, hip hop, pops, all kinds of stuff, anything that we can think of. I like to bring cheesy songs in and talk about why they became so popular, because I think a lot of people dismiss some of the really songs that we call it deep in the cheese, songs that are deep in the cheese. So that's our show. I also have another show that's won't be too interesting to your listeners here, but it's about seafood industry. It's very industry forward, but it's called Aquademia, the Seafood and Sustainability Podcast. So that's my other show.
Nice.
While I have the platform.
Absolutely. Well, we'll give you a bunch of chances to plug away, my friend. So no need to be shy there. But yeah, one of the things I really like about listening to your show is, you obviously having a background in music, you kind of look at songs a different way than I do. So it's interesting to hear somebody kind of break that stuff down in a way that I would have never really thought. And I have to say as well, I think it's pretty cool that you do a show with your dad. My dad has been clamoring to come on for the last couple of weeks, but some scheduling conflicts have prevented that. But Dad, if you're out there, we will have you on soon. So that'll be happening. But that's a pretty cool little touch that you guys have. It's a good dynamic between the two of you.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, he's known me my whole life, and I've known him my whole life. So
fair
we know
point.
Each other pretty well.
Yep. Definitely safe to say. So, all right. So, again, You're Not Listening in Aquademia, Shauna's 2 podcasts. Go give them a listen. Go check them out. Go follow them on all the social media platforms, which we'll let you plug at the end of the show as well. But to kind of transition a little bit into horror and why we're here tonight. So, Shauno, just to kind of give us a baseline for our listeners here. So, just to give some examples of your particular tastes in horror, okay? So if you could give me your top 3 horror movies of all time, what would you think they would be? I think I have a hunch as to what some of them would be.
I was going to ask, me and the 3 of us, for those who don't know, I used to live with Kat and Mike was over all the time. So I want to see if you can guess a couple of them before I let you know.
Kat, go ahead.
Evil Dead.
Okay.
That would have been my first guess. I would have also said Alien too.
All right, so I got them lined up. So my top is the Alien franchise.
Nice.
Oh wait, I got Covenant there too. And my second is the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah.
And then my third is gonna be American Werewolf in London.
Nice.
Love this movie. It has a very special place in my heart. And then I had a couple. I know you asked for 3, but I had a couple honorable mentions.
You can name as many as you want, my friend.
These are ones that I kind of always go back to is Insidious and Trick or Treat.
Nice. I love all those movies. Yeah. We've covered American Werewolf in London, Trick or Treat, and
I know I was bummed when I found out you did American Werewolf. I was like, I want to do that one.
Yeah, that was definitely a good episode to do. A lot to talk about with that movie. So
I'll never forget where I was when that boo scare in Insidious with the what's the guy
the lipstick face demon. Yeah.
Oh my God, we were in Quincy. Like
probably one of the best, most effective jump scares in the last decade, for sure.
That was terrifying.
That scared the shit out of me. I remember when we were too, Kat. We were watching it, and our backs were to a window, and I remember that happened, and I had to turn around to make sure there was nothing behind me. I was terrified.
That was awful. Yeah.
Very effective jump scare. Very effective jump scare.
Well, the music had a big part of that, and I'm sure we'll get into it at some point.
Absolutely. All right, so those are your favorite horror movies. What's the most recent horror movie that you've watched?
Most recent horror movie, I had to write it down because I couldn't remember what it was called. The most recent horror movie that I watched was Gehenna.
Okay.
Where it's called Gehenna, Where Death Lives. It was not great.
I was going to say I've never heard of that one before.
It's one of those movies where horror movies are easy to make. Good horror movies are hard to make. This interesting concept, but the script was a little all over the place, and the characters tried a little too hard. The actors tried a little too hard. So
yeah,
I wasn't crazy about it. There was some weird time travel kind of stuff that didn't really work that great. I think that was kind of the big surprise at the end was there's this time loop or something, and
yeah,
it wasn't great.
Okay, where'd you find that one?
Not a high recommendation from me.
Fair enough. Okay, and then I guess this kind of you might have already talked about this particular movie when you're mentioning some of your favorites, but what is the scariest movie that you, Shauno, have ever seen, my friend?
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this too. The scariest movie, when we say the scariest movie for me, it really has to do with when I watched it and what movies scared me the most when I first watched them. And I think the movies that scared me the most were Cujo, Salem's Lot, and The Ring. But the most recent movie that actually scared me and it made me need to watch a little Family Guy before I went to bed was The Babadook.
Babadook is horrifying. That movie's so scary.
Yeah, I watched that one. It was Sam was out at class or something at night, watched it at night, went to bed right after, laid in the dark for a few minutes and was like, I think I'm going to watch some cartoons before I go to sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely a few movies you watch. For us, it's you got to throw on some Always Sunny in Philadelphia or Family Guy or Letterkenny or something. Yeah, for sure. And I know Kat can relate to you on The Ring there too.
Yep.
Yeah, I watched The Ring. I think I was in middle school, and we had to stop it, take a break. And
I remember I owned The Ring on VHS, and I remember that was the scariest thing ever because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even own it on DVD. I actually have the videotape of it.
That's pretty awesome. Anything you own on VHS, that's definitely that's a classic. You got to hold on to those. Those are going to come back in style and be worth something someday. Retro VHS tapes. All right, cool. Good stuff, you guys. Good stuff. All right, so we'll keep moving on. Thanks for all that, Shauno. You guys want to get into some other stuff before we hop into what we're here to talk about tonight?
I'm sure Kat's eager to get into the news.
Well, the news we should get through pretty quick. It's not a ton, but I guess, so as I kind of mentioned, so generally we kind of cover some stuff that we've watched over the last, however long between when we last recorded. So, just a couple things that popped into my mind off the top of my head is that Kat and I kind of had a little bit of a true crime binge over the last week, and we went through, and I think in a matter of about 2 days, it looks like we lost Shaun here. Hopefully he can jump back on in a second.
Where are you, Marco?
Polo.
I think he'll probably jump back on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kat, we had a chance to do the Elisa Lam, the Cecil Hotel documentary on Netflix, and we also got around to the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix that Andrew, I know you've recommended pretty highly.
Oh yeah, that was
so
one of the better ones I've seen.
So Kat, I guess I think we both liked them a pretty good deal. Did you have a preference of which one you liked better out of the two? And I guess it just give your thoughts on the two of them.
Ooh, preference. So I don't know. I guess I think I liked the Cecil Hotel a little bit better. I don't know though, because they're both really good. Honestly though, I had no idea that all of that was based on American Horror Story season Hotel was based on the Cecil Hotel, which is kind of cool. I had no idea, but I feel like watching that documentary just made me like cringe. But also watching Night Stalker made me cringe too. So I'm like kind of torn there with which one was better or worse. But neither one of them I really had any idea about before we watched it. I kind of went in totally blind, it was nice for me because then I just kind of learned all this information. And then I was like, hey, I watched this documentary on the Cecil Hotel. And people are like, well, what's that? And then I'm like, oh, and then I watched the Night Stalker. But a lot more people knew about the Night Stalker documentary and all of that serial killing more so than when I mentioned the Cecil Hotel. So, yeah, I thought both of them were awesome.
Yeah, I agree. The Cecil Hotel one was...
Is it Cecil or Cecil?
Cecil, one of the two. And I think we got Shaun back. Are you out there, bud?
Oh.
Nope.
Oh, no.
I think he's having some technical difficulties. Oh, he said his internet crashed. He'll be hopping back on in a second. But yeah, Cecil, one of the two, whichever it is. I mean, I knew a little bit about the Elisa Lam situation, going into watching that documentary, and I feel like I was still blown away at how much new information. Like I had no idea about where it was actually located on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and I feel like that kind of played a huge part in the story. And I think while it was it probably could have been an episode or two shorter. They didn't need to make it 4 episodes, but I was intrigued the entire time. And the Night Stalker documentary was this is just one of the most evil people on the fucking planet. Richard Ramirez, just an absolute monster in every sense of the word. And, he ultimately got what he deserved and actually got off a little bit easy because he died of cancer after only, I think, however many years in jail. He wasn't in there for that long. So, but yeah, I would highly recommend checking out the Night Stalker documentary. I think it's just called Night Stalker. And then also it's The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Both of them awesome. And actually, so one of our listeners
Both
just made an excellent point. And yeah, Shaun, we got you back here, right? Can you hear us?
My internet crashed, and I'm on my Wi-Fi hotspot right now, and it's not very good.
Oh, okay. Are you able to hear us though? Okay.
It's a little jumbly. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, no problem. Sorry for the technical difficulty, folks.
Let's see if maybe I can turn my camera off. No.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Well, while you're working on that, so thank you, Jason, in the comments here for bringing up an excellent point. There's actually a pretty morbid link between the two, those two Netflix documentaries that we were talking about, between the Cecil Hotel one and also the Night Stalkers. That Richard Ramirez was actually living at the Cecil Hotel for a long time, far too long. And he was actually, after he was killing these people, committing these crimes, he was coming back to the Cecil Hotel covered in blood to walk back up to his room. And nobody had any issue with this, just kind of let him do it, which is just makes it so much more messed up. But yeah, obviously a pretty macabre link between the two.
They used some of the same footage from both documentaries.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool.
Andrew, did you have any thoughts on Night Stalker? I know you watched that one. Did you get around to Cecil Hotel yet?
I haven't watched Cecil Hotel yet. I just assume it's Cecil because Cecil Fielder.
Cecil Fielder, yeah.
Where my mind goes with that. Night Stalker, I love that. It did teach me one thing. If you're gonna murder a lot of people, you should probably change your shoes every once in a while.
Yeah, or maybe don't wear that pair of Asics that they can track back to like where. That was insane that they were able to do that.
Yeah, but it still took them so long to figure it out, and I was like,
yeah,
amazing. Like
definitely.
You think he would have slipped up a little bit more than he did, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that he didn't slip up sooner, but obviously, I think the story in that particular documentary is about the two cops that were partnered up trying to hunt this killer down, and you can just see the toll that the case took on them. So, yeah, I thought they were both excellent and worth checking out, no doubt about it. So you can find both those on Netflix for any of those that are wondering if you haven't watched them yet. All right, so we are back, and you guys ready to get into some news?
Oh.
Yeah.
Kat's thrilled. I say, don't all leap at once. This will be quick, I promise, and then we'll jump into our topic tonight. But a couple relevant things that popped up. So we've talked kind of at length, and we actually did an episode on Creepshow the movie, but also there's the Creepshow TV series that's exclusive to Shudder, which is the horror streaming service that I would recommend. So we have an announcement on when you can get the second season of Creepshow. It's dropping on April 1st. No joke there. It actually is premiering on April 1st. You got a trailer that showed some all kinds of crazy creatures and looks like some twisted stories. You have giant spiders in there, some aquatic monsters, zombies, various other stuff. Looks like they have a much bigger budget for this season, and got some pretty heavy guest stars for this season, including Keith David from The Thing and Barbara Crampton from Reanimator and various other horror movies. And this show was unfortunately in the news recently. So it's come to light over the last, I'd say, probably 2 or 3 weeks that Marilyn Manson is not a great guy and is a pretty big scumbag. And he was actually supposed to star in an episode of this new season of Creepshow that was starring him and Molly Ringwald. And they actually cut the episode from the season, obviously, given the allegations that have come to light against him. So I don't think that episode will ever see the light of day. But, obviously, Shaun, I ask you, do you have Shudder, and have you ever seen Creepshow, the TV series?
I don't have Shudder. I love the movie, but no, I don't.
As do I.
I don't have Shudder. I've been really interested in. I've heard a lot of good things about A Discovery of Witches on Shudder. I don't know.
Yeah, that pops up in the feed there all the time, but I've never actually watched that.
I've heard good things about it, but I don't. I have every other subscription service. I can't afford to pay for one more.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Well, everything's streaming now. Now you have Discovery Plus, and there's the Paramount one that they advertised the shit out of during the Super Bowl with all those commercials that eventually led to them everyone ending up at the top of Paramount Mountain, which was actually kind of cool commercials. But yeah, so Kat, Andrew, I know we've watched a few episodes of the Creepshow TV series. In for more Creepshow TV? Yes, yay, nay, thumbs up.
Yay.
I wasn't 100% like into the show on Shudder, but eventually, I'll probably find one or two that I like.
Oh, I liked it.
I thought it was all right.
Is it like the movie? Is it like similar to the movie?
Yeah,
kind of the feel, that kind of campy feel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very, very reminiscent of like EC horror comics, Tales from the Crypt, that type of thing. But they brought the creep back. It's a nice looking animatronic creep, and there's lots of crazy stories in there. Kat, I know you were a really big fan of the Christmas episode.
Yeah, I loved the Christmas episode.
Yeah.
I watched it like 3 times because I even tried to watch it with Andrew one time, and Andrew was like, "Nah."
I don't even remember this.
Yeah, see, exactly. That's why you're like, "Nah."
Hey, you can't remember everything. I can't remember everything. But yeah, so Creepshow Season 2 coming April 1st. If you have Shudder, I'd recommend go checking it out. Next news topic. One of the most interesting directors working today has come out with some awesome films. That would be Edgar Wright, who is famous for Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and the upcoming horror film Last Night in Soho. And let the Stephen King renaissance continue, my friends. Edgar Wright is directing a reboot of The Running Man that is going to be coming out, I think, at some point in 2022. And obviously, there was the.
Is that going to be funny? Is it going to be?
I'm sure it's going to have some humor. It's actually one of like a. It's so King wrote this under one of his pseudonyms, Richard Bachman. I actually never read the book, but I feel like given the tone, it probably will have some comedy elements in there. And I feel like if there is going to be that type of vibe, Edgar Wright's a pretty good director to kind of tap into that. What do you think, Shaun?
So the tone of the Arnold movie is a lot. It's a lot more silly, and the story is a little different. You know, in the book, he goes all over the world. He travels. He's constantly on the run. It's not like he's in like a small area that they're coming after him. So I feel like it would be really good as a longer running series. But you know, I hope he kind of goes with the storyline from the book a little bit more and gets as much as I love to see like the opera singer killer guy come after him. You know, I think I'd like to see him stick to the book a little bit more. But I also think that The World's End is one of the greatest movies ever made. So if he goes down that road, I'll be happy with it as well.
I love that movie. That's an underrated Edgar Wright movie. What any of the
Cornetto
collaborations he's done with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are all phenomenal. So you can't really there's not a miss in there. But yeah, I'd be excited to check this one out. Andrew, Kat, what about you guys?
Oh, I would definitely watch this, like 100%. Because, like you said, the Simon Pegg. Did you watch the TV show? We were talking about it not too long ago with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. What was it called?
Truth Seekers.
Yes, that was really good.
So I actually haven't watched that yet, but it is on my list. And I did see, unfortunately, that it did get canceled after the first season.
I thought it was good. Seth turned me on to that, and I watched it in like 2 days. And yeah, it's silly, fun, but it's serious. You know, got that kind of culty feel to it still.
Okay.
Conspiracy theory as all their other stuff does. So yeah, it was really good. But that's kind of
cool.
But whatever.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I'll have to give that one a shot. I think, so Kat and I finally made the decision to try and finish The Haunting of Bly Manor. Not because we didn't think it was good. We just kind of had a lot of other stuff crop up, and we never had a chance to finish it. And we're almost done with it now. And so some of the criticisms that it did take a little bit longer to get going than season one, I agree with, but I don't think it's bad. I actually kind of like it. It's picking up a little bit.
Yeah, by like the 5th episode, it's picking up.
I know. Well, hey, Mike Flanagan's stuff is very reliant on trying to establish characters and mood, and I think that they definitely took their time doing that with Haunting of Bly Manor. But yeah, interested to see how it ends.
Yeah, it looks promising.
Yeah,
I liked Hill House a lot better than Bly Manor, but
yeah, I loved Hill House. Hill House was phenomenal, and this one is good. It's good.
Yeah. Great.
So. All right, last news item, guys. We were kind of talking about Ari Aster a little bit before we hopped on here live, but we do have a name, a star, and a title for the new Ari Aster movie that is going to be distributed again by A24. It's going to be called Disappointment Boulevard, and it's going to star Joaquin Phoenix.
Ooh, I love him.
Yeah. So this has all sorts of interesting potential. And Ari Aster, if you're not familiar with his work, he has done Hereditary and Midsommar, two of the most well-regarded or highly regarded, I should say, horror films to be released, I'd say probably in the last 5 years. Midsommar came out more recently. I prefer Hereditary, but do need to give Midsommar another chance. I think all three of us do. Shaun, I know you're a big fan of Midsommar, as you mentioned before, but yeah. So Ari Aster, definitely a hot horror director out there, up and coming, has a definite, a feel to his movies. So this sounds like it's going to be much of the same, but not a lot of details. The only description of the plot that's out there so far is that it's an intimate, decades-spanning portrait of one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. So I ask you folks, and Shaun, I'll start with you. Are you in or out on this?
I'm sure it'll be gloomy and depressing and violent.
Yep.
And probably really good.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm in.
Well said.
I'll see it when I get a chance.
Oh, I'm 100% in.
Same.
I mean, odds are, like Shaun just said, you'll probably need a shower after you watch this movie just to get the filth off of it. Anything with Joaquin Phoenix or Joaquin. Yeah, I'm definitely in on this movie. I would, even though Midsommar left a bitter taste in my mouth, I'd still want to see this. So
Cool. Catherine, what about you?
Oh, I'm all in with Joaquin. Yeah.
Joaquin.
Walking down the
Well,
road.
and I don't think I really have a choice because if you want to watch it, I'm watching it. So that's kind of like how it happens. I end up watching it anyway. So
Yeah. And then another count he heard from. So this might pop up from time to time. If you've listened to our show, you know Otis is extremely loud, so he may come in and out from time to time. But all right, cool, Catherine. You'll be excited to hear that that's it for the news, which means we are on to tonight's topic, which I'm super excited to talk about. I can't believe.
Slight news item, Mike. That you
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
There is I think there's going to be a new anthology horror series by J.J. Abrams and Stephen King coming out possibly at some point on Apple TV. I just saw an article today about that. There isn't much leaked on it, but I'm like, that's kind of a cool collaboration. They've collaborated before on a bunch of stuff. So
yeah, I was going to say they were in cahoots with Castle Rock.
And then they did that other one with James Franco in it, like the time travel one.
Oh yeah, 1963, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's like 11 something.
63.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The actual date of when JFK was assassinated, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that day. So,
cool.
That was a cool one. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like every day there's more news of another Stephen King adaptation. So, but again, that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as they're well made. So I'm all in on the new Stephen King adaptations. So bring them on. But thanks for that, Andrew. That one slipped by me, so I appreciate you chiming in there. But yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking about horror movie scores and soundtracks, which is a topic that I'm very excited to kind of get into here. And you know, obviously, this is I think a perfect topic to discuss with Shaun, obviously, given the nature of his shows and you know his experience with music. So I think this is going to be a really fun one, and I'm excuse me, excited to kind of, because I feel like this is a way to kind of talk about a bunch of different movies, maybe some TV shows. And, you know, we do cover music from time to time in some of our deep dives into movies, but we've never focused specifically on music for an entire episode. So, you know, I think music is an essential part of horror movies. It can add tension. It can build dread. It can be used for jump scares, like the scene in Insidious that we mentioned earlier in the episode. And it can certainly be the difference in the way a particular scene is perceived by the audience. So you know, when I mentioned something like that, a movie that kind of came to me when I was thinking about this earlier was a movie like Get Out, right? So Get Out is definitely a horror movie, but has a lot of comedy in it, a lot of comedic elements, and it's funny as hell. And I feel like there are certain scenes in the movie where if that ominous score hadn't really been present in Get Out, you know, you wouldn't necessarily know that you were watching something that was horror related, but you know, some of the music that's going on when it shows Chris and his girlfriend driving to go meet the girlfriend's parents. I forget her name, Allison Williams' character. But you know this isn't some leisurely trip for this guy meeting his girlfriend's parents for the first time. You know there's something dreadful coming. And I think that's one of the ways that music can kind of make or break a scene in a horror movie. So that was one that kind of popped into my mind when thinking about that. So I ask you all, and Shaun, I will start with you, my friend, since you are our guest. Does a movie need music to be scary?
Does it need music to be scary?
Yes.
Well, I think there's a place for music, and if you do it right, then it can make it scary. But I also think that there's a place for silence, and that can be just as effective, if not more effective, than having music in the background. You know, the thing with horror movies is music is used to let you know, at least with American horror movies. Japanese horror movies use very little music. They kind of just let the visuals and the visceral things that are happening on the screen take you for the ride. But in American horror movies, it's like they're very big on using like musical cues. So you know something scary is going to happen. You know, it's not so much this is scary right now, but it's coming because you're hearing those low rumbles and you're hearing the low, the ominous tones that with no key signatures and, there's no structure or anything. It's just kind of building something and you know that something's coming. So I think plays a really key role. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to make it scary. And if you want examples of that, watch some Japanese. I think Martyrs is one of those ones that doesn't have much music, if any.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. I think it definitely can help, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. So I was just trying to think of movies that a horror movie that doesn't have music. So and I can actually I recently watched the Blair Witch Project. Very scary movie, not a piece of music in the entire thing. And actually not a lot of music in most found footage horror movies. So, I think Blair Witch Project is a movie that scared me on a visceral level the first time I saw it with, very creepy sound is used incredibly effectively, but music, not so much. So, Kat, what about you? Do you think a movie needs music to be scary, or do you think it just helps?
I think that you need music. I get Shauno's point that music changes like the entire feel of a movie. I was a music minor in college. In high school, I did this whole paper because I was missing some stupid. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. I did like this paper on physical effects that music can do to your body, and one of the things that I researched was that music can have an effect just like the same type of adrenaline as a cup of coffee. So it can have that kind of a powerful effect on you that you might not have with silence. But I do agree with Shauno that silence can be just as deafening, if you will, that it can create the same kind of buildup. Even in we'll get to other like more specific examples later, but like kind of taking a break and having silence and then having music after it, following it up, I think is way more effective than just silence for the entire movie. But I mean, as you just mentioned too, at the Blair Witch Project, like there's no music. And it was so funny because the minute that I saw this in the outline earlier, I was like, oh, well, what about like A Quiet Place? Because there's not a lot of, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Nope, there's a soundtrack to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that one does. It's very, very little sound, but it does have some music, I think, at least.
It does.
That's one of those ones that uses those kind of just low tones to kind of just have something constant going in the background. And what they do is they use really low tones because, the human brain is your lizard brain is designed to think, okay, high pitched things, small, not scary. Low pitched things, big, dangerous, stay away from it, right? So you're getting these really low tones that aren't in any specific key. The notes don't really match up. So you get this kind of clashing. It just feels unnatural and it makes you feel uneasy. And so in a lot of horror movies, especially during quiet scenes, you're going to see a lot of that. It's not music. You can't really call it music. It's just these low notes that are kind of floating in the atmosphere that are going to make you feel a little bit uneasy. They're going to make you feel that anxiety as it builds up into, the big scare or the cat scare,
Yeah. And I had whole notes. I had in my notes, the whole, getting into music theory and like consonance and dissonance and the way that things resolve back together. And I was like, I should not go into that much depth in this podcast because it's like,
I'm right there with you, Kat. I got a whole page of notes on that.
I know. I was like,
just in case it comes up.
You certainly can. Feel free to go off on a tangent. That's far outside my realm of expertise.
Yeah.
So, all right, Andrew, what about you? Your thoughts, my friend?
I think in general, you do need music in a horror movie to make it scarier or build that dread and that sense of just, dread, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, disturbed. Like you said, though, too, most found footage movies don't have it. Like Creep, there's really no music in that.
Yeah, Creep definitely doesn't.
You expect it in those type of movies, so you're not really looking for it. But I think that what sets apart the best horror movies is that score from the music. It makes a huge difference. Like if you could just if it has bad music, it just feels like a cheesy movie. Whereas if it has it doesn't even have to be like that great of music, just those atonal notes that Kat loves so much. And
did my whole thesis on atonality.
What's that?
Did my whole thesis on it.
No, you were talking about that restaurant, and I want to go to that restaurant last night.
Oh man, yeah.
Should start that. I would love to go to that psychopath atonal restaurant.
Yeah, Shauna that was right around the time I was living in Weymouth, so I was like crazy grad school, like building weird things, and yeah,
it
was right around.
I do remember that actually. Yeah. You lived in the right. If you were doing anything on music, you lived in the right house because I think everyone in that house except Minnie was a musician. So
yeah, Yep.
Yeah, Jesus, I felt like a fish out of water in there. That was a very musically inclined house, definitely. Between you, Sully, and Oz.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool, good stuff, you guys. I'll ask you this, Shaun. I'll start with you again, and we'll just kind of keep that same rotation going. But is there a movie or a TV show where the music kind of grabbed you before the plot did? Like the music was the thing that stuck out to you the most?
I think so. I have a list of like legendary or iconic scores, and that kind of leads into that. Like, I think a really good example of a movie that does that is The Shining.
Yeah,
With the opening scene with the car, the helicopter shot where
yeah,
they're driving up the mountain, and you just hear that bomb, 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 like the
yeah. That
whatever it
main
is.
title theme in The Shining
Main
is
title
one
theme.
of the
And that's one of
best.
the only like. There's not a lot of music in that movie either. I don't think.
Well, so when I was looking up, so I wrote down some stuff for The Shining just because I think the music in it it's minimal, but it's incredibly effective.
It is effective for sure.
Yeah. So there were actually only two pieces of music that were written for The Shining, and Kubrick opted to use a lot of classical music from composers instead of having an entire new score written. So, but the exception to the rule there being the main title theme, which is just called the main title theme for The Shining. And then in addition to that, there was another song written called Rocky Mountains. So it was written by Wendy Carlos. Both those songs were written by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind. But yeah, I agree. Like that opening montage over the credits of The Shining it does such a good job of setting the tone and the mood for that movie. It has that sweeping, synthy, ominous feel with like those like screeching, like low pitched, almost like chattering voices. And it just makes the opening of The Shining that much more terrifying. So that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up.
It grabs you for sure.
Yeah. So one that it's not a movie, but one that I thought of where the music was the first thing that stuck out to me. And Andrew, this will be no surprise to you. I mean, who the fuck would I be kidding here if I didn't bring up Stranger Things? But I mean, Stranger Things got a little bit of promotion from Netflix. Obviously, it's probably the biggest show they do now, but I can remember vividly watching Stranger Things for the first time and being like, okay, like this is pretty good. But then those opening titles hit with that music, and then there's that scene where the kids are playing Dungeons and Dragons and they're riding home on their bikes, and there's this piece of music called "Kids." Everything's written by Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein, who are from the electronic band Survive. And I think the music is probably the most. I love Stranger Things, but I think the music is probably the most consistently excellent part of the show. But
It's
just
so
like the main,
nostalgic to the horror movie of the 80s.
it gets me every time. And it captures like that blend of, I think, like the feel that Stranger Things is trying to invoke, like that John Carpenter, Steven Spielberg, kind of feel. Sorry, brain freeze there.
It happens. It's cold.
Yeah. But yeah. So I guess that was the one that I had. Kat, what about you?
I was gonna say Halloween.
Yeah.
John Carpenter did the music in that too, which was kind of cool that he composed it. And it's like those like cattle prods, like piercing keyboard, like doo-doo-doo, and all of a sudden it's like all of like you kind of look over your shoulder like, oh, what's that, or what's this, and where's Michael, and like what's gonna happen next. And there's kind of that like off kilter discord, and like you just makes you feel uneasy, like what we said earlier. I thought that Halloween has definitely, and even like the beginning credits with the whole pumpkin and the do 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 do, like that's Halloween. And that's, I mean, even Mike, that was your ringtone over the fall season. I mean,
yeah, every October it's my ringtone.
Yeah.
Well, the Halloween song is so relentless too, because it's that do 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 do. It just doesn't stop. It's going the entire time, and it's it's the same feel. They're using that to build up the feeling of being followed, and that someone is constantly watching you and coming after you and following you, because it's just nonstop. It works really well to build that anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, probably the most iconic score in all of horror movies, I would say that, or maybe Jaws, or a couple of other movies pop into my mind that I'm sure will.
The shower scene from Psycho.
Yep, Psycho, say The Exorcist, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes if any of those movies were anybody else's.
Well, Exorcist, I don't know if you guys know that the theme in Exorcist is actually called Tubular Bells. It's just a song. It wasn't. It's not a
I did
score
know
right
that.
song.
Yeah.
That is a 26-minute long song.
Wow.
And
Holy shit.
it's like full of wacky synthesizers and weird sounds, and it gets very 80s at one point. Definitely listen to it at some point if you have 26 minutes that you can dedicate to actively listening to that song. It's really super interesting, and if you watch, there's a video of them performing it live on YouTube. Super interesting. But that's a song that was written by some group. I don't know who they're called, but
It's awesome.
it works perfectly for that. Like you can't picture that movie without that song, and you can't hear that song without picturing that movie. They're married so closely together, even though they began as separate things, which is pretty cool.
Andrew, what about you, my friend? Did you have a movie or a TV show where the music was the first thing you noticed?
Well, you took Stranger Things from me. Which is
Sorry.
I'm surprised you didn't mention it because there's nothing that invokes nightmares for me. It must be from when I was a kid and my dad would be watching it and I could just hear it. And it was the haunting music of Unsolved Mysteries coming on.
Oh, that's a great one.
There's something about the intro to that. It's just so good.
Something about Angela Lansbury and Unsolved Mysteries.
So it's just watch a horror movie and then it's just like this woman couldn't find her dog. No, but it's fun.
That's a good one. Unsolved Mysteries is a great one, and also the X-Files too. The X-Files, that music, right when it was on, I was pretty young. That used to scare me big time because I remember my dad used to watch the X-Files for a period of time. So that was another one too.
So can I talk a little bit about one other one? Actually,
Yeah.
Kat, you'll appreciate this one, Kat. This is where we'll get a little nerdy,
Nice.
music nerdy. So I want to talk about Twilight Zone theme.
Another great one.
Right? That is one of the most like insanity inducing songs you could hear. It just drives you crazy. It makes you want to like chew your skin off, right?
Yeah.
So that was very specifically written that way, and it's pretty cool how they wrote it. So the main melody of that is actually a regular melody. It's the same melody as, you know, that song Heathens?
Yeah.
All my friends are heathens, take it.
Yep.
That's
21 Pilots.
It's the same melody as the Twilight Zone.
Ah, good catch.
I never even noticed that before.
Yeah, so I think that's in or let's see, what is it? It's in E major. If you don't understand what that means, don't worry about it. Basically, what that means is if you're playing that melody, you can play any note in the E major scale and it will work. It'll sound okay. They play a harmony note over it. With every single note, they play one note that's a B minor, which is not in that E major scale. And it creates this really bad dissonance. It's like if you're watching somebody play music and they play a wrong note, and they just keep playing it over and over and over again, it's going to drive you absolutely nuts because it sounds so wrong and so off. But it's like they're not giving up on it. They're going to keep doing it until it sounds right, and it's never going to sound right. And that's how that song was written. It's intentionally written with notes in different keys to just drive you nuts, get in your ear, and just like pick away at your brain until you start to go crazy. And it's perfect for a show like the Twilight Zone. So I found that super interesting. I think that's really
cool. Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah, I love the Twilight Zone. That's an awesome show, and the music is obviously one of the most iconic parts about it. Probably that and Rod Serling's narration, but I never knew that before.
Tubular Bells was Mike Oldfield that came in.
Mike Oldfield, that's right.
Is that your dad?
That's his station.
Your dad answered on Facebook.
Yeah, my co-host. Thanks, Dad.
Nice. What's up, Jim? Thanks for tuning in.
Maybe we'll cover that song on our show sometime. Maybe that'll be a Patreon episode because it will be super long.
3 hours.
Yeah. All right. So I think we kind of have talked about a lot of different stuff so far here, but you know, one of the things that we wanted to do here is just kind of go around the horn and just give a little synopsis about, you know, some of your favorite horror scores. We'll see if we can each do two if time permits. Obviously, I don't want this to go too long. But with that being said,
listeners, so
yeah, Kat, I'll let you start with this one.
I get to go first. Oh
yeah.
So, I already mentioned Halloween. I hate to take this from you, Mike. Well, I have a few.
I have a list of a good number of them. So if you wanna go ahead, just give us one, and we'll go to Andrew after that.
Okay, Jaws.
Yeah.
So John Williams. And the beautiful thing about Jaws is it's only two notes. It's dun 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 dun, 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 and it just plays faster. That's like the main theme of the song. And it's just so creepy that that you associate those two notes with the shark coming. It's like, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but
Spielberg
it's
thought he
so
was joking.
effective. Yeah.
When he showed him that score, when he said, "Oh, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna play this," and he just doo-doo.
Yep.
Doo-doo. And he's like, "You kidding me?" And he thought he was joking, and it ended up working perfectly.
Yeah. So that's my first round.
Yeah, I mean, obviously an iconic score, and will never not remind me of that giant shark, and the movie that probably scared me the most out of any movie I've ever seen in my life, and why I'm afraid of deep open water. So yeah, and the music is obviously great in that. And there's obviously, like, there's the main title theme, but I'm thinking about, like, so just like one scene pops in my head in particular, but like the scene when Hooper is down diving underneath the boat, and the corpse of Ben Gardner pops out of the boat with one eye missing, and he's all, gross and dead. And there's a nice little piece of shocking music right before that happens that it makes the jump scare even more effective. So yeah, Jaws is a great one. Good call, Catherine. That was on my list, but I figured that somebody else might take that, so I did come prepared with
Way
others.
to take the softballs, Cat.
I have more obscure ones. I was ready to go like last, because that's usually I never go first.
I wanted you to have the opportunity, so
Thanks.
you're welcome. Andrew, your turn, my friend.
So this is no particular order, right? We're just kind of...
Yeah, just give us whatever one you feel like riffing on to start with.
I would be remiss if I didn't choose Phantasm.
Ugh.
I'm so mad. She's like, I can't stand that when we stop talking about it. But it's just so 80s, and it's just such a good... I don't know what it is about it. Maybe I'm just obsessed with that movie, and I should seek therapy. But the soundtrack for that movie is so good. Like, that, it might be better than the actual movie itself. So I'm not too sure, but it's just, I don't know what it is. If you haven't seen Phantasm, I recommend watching it.
I don't.
And go listen to our episode that we did on Phantasm.
Phantasm. I can't even, I don't even have an explanation as to why I find that soundtrack so good. It's just very upbeat and catchy, and I don't know. There's just something about it.
Hey, sometimes stuff just clicks with you, so understandable. I had a feeling that you might pick that one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm sure Kat knew too.
Well, yeah, because you pick it for everything. It's like
it's get enough recognition.
Like, who's your favorite villain? It's the guy from Phantasm. Like,
the tall man.
Who's your, man. Like, I mean, come on, get some variety going, will you?
That soundtrack,
hey,
Phantasm
song.
The man likes what he likes. He's a man of particular tastes. He loves him some Phantasm, some Angus Scrim,
some silver balls.
Jam session. Reggie jumps out of the ice cream truck and just start playing that song with the two guitars. It's so good.
Yeah, it is a good score. It is definitely, the music in that was definitely very good. I can remember that for sure. Mr. O'Loughlin, you got one for us?
Yeah, I have a few. Trying to decide. I mean, some of the older movies had really good scores because they had a lot more presence. The music had a lot more presence back in the Universal Monster days and stuff like that. The music was used to tell, and even especially movies like Nosferatu, silent films were driven by music. But I think the Hammer films had really good scores. They spent a lot of time writing the scores for those Hammer films, and the main villain theme for the Dracula, the Hammer. I don't know if it's which Dracula film it is.
That's the Christopher Lee Dracula, I think, right?
Yeah. And there was a specific theme that they had every time he showed up on screen, and it's a really, really cool theme. It's very, once you start watching the movie, it's really recognizable. And I thought that's kind of cool. So I just want to call that one out. Old school.
Awesome.
What about you, Michael?
All right, so I'm gonna take one here that I'm sure probably you guys had on your list at some point, but I feel like it is a movie where the music is such a piece of the movie, and that's It Follows.
Oh,
so, yeah, I mean, It Follows is a fantastic movie already, but the score, which was written by a guy named Disaster Piece, is, it kind of does a good job of invoking that, that retro synthy 80s feel that they're going for, but it kind of takes that vibe, that John Carpenter-ish vibe, and takes it in a more modern direction. And it was already, like I said, already an excellent, scary premise for a movie, with a lot of, it's open for interpretation, a lot of the movie, but the music is consistently excellent. it just creates a vibe, and it lends to that, kind of grungy, lived-in suburban dystopia that the movie's going for, like just, being stuck in the suburbs with this crazy creature chasing you around wherever you go. And I thought that the music in that, gave the movie a whole other element, if you will.
Have
So
you
yeah,
guys covered
big
that
fan
one
of the It
on your
Follows
show?
soundtrack. Yeah, It Follows is actually one of the first movies that we did. I think it was our third episode.
We did that one twice.
Cool.
Yeah,
movie. Cool movie.
we had to restart that one. We tried to record on New Year's Eve, and let's just say that we got a little too ahead of ourselves there, I'd say.
We may have hit the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after a couple of scorpion bowls, like thinking that's a good idea. Like,
Yeah.
cool idea.
Well, that, and so that, going out getting Chinese food on New Year's Eve, that's what a lot of people do. But then in addition to that, coming back to our house and then watching the entire movie before recording while, continuing to imbibe on New Year's Eve doesn't necessarily lend to a product that many people we felt would want to listen to. So yeah, we had to redo that one, and for a bit at least.
It was an aggressive idea.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, we were new at that point, so I think we've learned a few things. But all right, Kat, you got another one for us?
Yeah. Actually, so one of my other ones, I don't know if it really counts as a horror movie or not. It was actually one of my picks for the draft of like not scary. I forget what the non-horror movies. Was Requiem for a Dream. Does that
I'll allow it. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So actually, I have
Pretty
follow this.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary movie.
Oh, it's very dark, very dark. I mean, it's not really a boo scare kind of traditional horror movie, but like the whole premise of it is pretty terrifying. So I have this whole like Spotify playlist of top movie soundtracks or whatever, and one of their winter summer overtures, and it's very creepy. The whole thing is just very like the whole song. If you look up their soundtrack for this movie, every song is just like another creepy thing. It's very like do like it's Clint Mansell and the Kronos Quartet. They composed the whole soundtrack, and it's awesome. It's very creepy, very kind of like how Shaun said, the like kind of rumbly bass, but then also has these kind of like higher notes above it that kind of create this layered feeling that makes you just feel really uneasy the entire time.
Yeah, those high screeching, drawn out string kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that would be my second one. Can I do a bonus one?
Sure. Let's do everyone else first, and then we can do a few, because I think we have a few more here that we can do. So, all right, Andrew, what else you got, my friend?
So I was torn on my second choice. It was either going to be Sinister or Hellraiser, and interesting enough, it was the same guy that did both. Christopher Young was the composer for both of those, but I ended up going with Hellraiser just because it's just so haunting and orchestral. Is that the word? Did I make that up? Is that a word?
No, that's a word.
That is okay. And it just builds up throughout. Like it's very thematic and almost lyrical in the music that comes with it, and it builds up to every scene. So I really like that part of it. And then Sinister in the same aspect, it was the fact that, see, I just threw my bonus one in here without even asking.
Boo, Andrew. Boo.
That's how you roll, so it's okay.
Yeah,
no worries.
But it was mostly the during like the snuff films, like the creepy, just weird. It wasn't even music; it was just like noises and sounds, and just made me feel very uncomfortable. Like if there's music that should ever go with snuff films, it's that music. And like that guy, that just goes to show his range. That guy that composed both of those, because they're both opposite ends of the spectrum, I feel like, as far as music goes in a movie. So that's why I picked Hellraiser, definitely, because that movie's awesome anyway. So
yeah, but Hellraiser music is awesome, but yeah, I like that you included Sinister there, because I remember the music that you're talking about for those snuff films, particularly the one, again, another insane jump scare that got me good. It obviously gets Ethan Hawke very good, his character, when he's watching it, but the lawnmower part with that needle drop that they have before that happens, that caught me off guard. That got me pretty good. Shaun, want to go for another one?
Yeah, I know it's kind of cheesy to pick, your your favorite horror movie, but I think the title sequence for Alien is absolutely gorgeous.
It is
It's
awesome.
not scary. It's just wide open and just beautiful. I don't even know how else to describe it. It's just a really beautifully composed song.
Yeah. I love the music in Alien as well. And so I actually recently had replayed Alien Isolation. You ever play that, Shauno? Or I'm sure you've probably heard of it as a huge fan of
No,
Alien.
I haven't played it. I've been planning on getting it. It's pretty cheap now, but
It
trying
is,
to
yeah, 'cause it's a
figure
few
out
years
when
old.
I don't really have a lot of time to play video games, so I haven't
I know, you get
haven't
the little
bothered
ones,
getting
but
it yet. But
understandable.
I'm not a huge fan of the sneaking around type video games, like Assassin's Creed and stuff, where you kind of have to like be hiding in the corners and stuff. I'm not
Yeah,
crazy. I mean, we talked about this earlier. I'm not big on video games in general, but those
yeah,
types of games I don't really have the patience for. So
sure.
I feel
I
like I
can
would love
understand.
it because of the theming, and it's on the Nostromo, right? Is it
So
or a
basically,
similar?
so the reason I brought it up is because the music from Alien is used, and it kind of holds on to that like analog future type of vibe. But it's
Yeah,
essentially it
future.
is set, I think, 10 years after the first movie, and you play as Ripley's daughter, Amanda.
Amanda Ripley, right?
And
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
so
read all
there's
about it.
this, yeah, and then there's this big space station called the Sevastopol that finds the flight recorder for the Nostromo. So basically, Ripley works for Weyland Yutani and is sent to go recover the flight recorder with some other people from the company. And they get on the ship, and shit has gone crazy, and there is an alien stalking you the entire time. But it is incredibly scary. Fun to play. I can understand why you might not want to play it, but I enjoyed it. But yeah, it holds on to
I
that same
definitely want.
aesthetic from the first movie, and the music is in there too, which
Yeah, I definitely want to try it.
beautiful for sure.
I love that. I love that score. I just think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one for sure. All right, so Alien, excellent. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that one. So I'll go next here. I'll throw a curveball here, one that probably you guys didn't think I might include, Andrew and Kat. I thought you might have this on your list, Kat, but I didn't see it in your notes earlier. But the music from Saw is pretty iconic.
Yeah, I
Oh.
was here for that too, but I didn't.
Yeah,
Live and
so
let die. It's Live and Let Die. Bum bum bum.
yeah,
Bum, bum,
honestly, it's
bum,
very
bum,
similar to
bum,
that. But yeah, so Charlie Clouser wrote all the music for the first Saw movie, and actually he used to play synthesizers for Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, cool.
So he kind of has that industrial music vibe. But when I think about Saw, the music is one of the first things I think about, especially in the first movie. There's one song specifically. It's called "Hello Zep." Obviously, if you are familiar with the movie, you know what part this particular piece of music kicks in. But it has been used in all 8 Saw films, and it will probably be in the upcoming new one. Jesus, there's going to be a 9th Saw film. It's so many. Yeah. But it's kind of that piece of music has kind of become synonymous with that crazy twist ending of the first movie, where Adam just kind of finally puts everything together, and then you have John Kramer standing up in the middle of the room. Spoiler alert! But I mean, if you haven't seen Saw, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Slams the door. End of movie. But I thought that was a very iconic piece of music that just kind of, there's something to be said for that movie when you see it for the first time and you finally figure out what's going on. And I feel like that movie enhances the feel of that particular scene in an awesome way. So yeah, I had Saw for one of mine.
I like it, Mike.
Cool.
That's a good pick.
I got a couple more I could talk about. Do you guys have any more? I know you said, Kat, you said you had a bonus, right?
Yeah, my bonus, which it's kind of funny because I don't actually think I've seen this movie. I may, but I couldn't really pass up. I was looking at different scores today and kind of researching different things, but the composer caught my eye because he was one of my atonal guys when I was doing my thesis, was Candyman. So Philip Glass was the composer for this soundtrack, and I did actually listen to a lot of the soundtrack. The score today. And it's a very creepy mix of an organ, chanting. There's this wistful piano, and I would never pass up the opportunity to say glockenspiel. So, so yeah, Candyman was my bonus.
Glockenspiel is a very funny word to say, so I don't begrudge you for passing an opportunity to say that word and talk about Candyman. Candyman's a good one for sure.
Kat, you like that movie?
I can't say I remember the music.
I don't think I've seen it. I don't remember. If I have, it's been like a very long time.
It's another.
Like half the movies I've seen so many movies. I'm just like they are in and out. Like I don't remember.
They're in and out like the brain cells in your head.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Anybody else get another one they want to cover? Andrew?
Yeah, I was
Shauno?
going to say Friday the 13th.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Very iconic.
I got a one more too. I don't know. I'm surprised no one brought it up yet.
Gone with the chlorophyll, my friend.
From Us.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
They manipulate. I got 5 on it throughout that. It's so good. Like the scene when she's down in the tunnels or wherever she is, and they're having their little battle with her doppelganger there. It's like, it's so good. I love that. I don't know if you guys know which
So
part.
cool. That movie. I had to watch that movie like
yeah.
4 times before I started to understand it. I still don't fully understand all of everything with it. That movie is crazy.
I love it. I actually think I like it. I
Real
might
good.
even like it better than Get Out.
Oh, it's way better than Get Out.
Yeah,
Jordan
it's good.
Peele's awesome. His movies are great. He's another guy that's just it's so exciting to see what he's going to bring because I mean he's just hit 2 absolute home runs with those first 2 movies that he did. So yeah, good call on Get Out. Kat, I'm actually surprised. Or excuse me, on Us. Kat, I'm surprised you didn't bring that one up because I know you love. I got 5 on it.
I do. I really like that song.
Yeah.
That's a great scene too in the car, when they're driving
Yeah.
the car. The song
Oh
comes on.
yeah.
Really, really well done scene.
Absolutely. So in the comments here, our friend Anthony Landry, your ears must have been ringing, my friend, because one of the things that I had, if we had a little extra time, was going to be The Thing, which we covered The Thing in a recent episode, but one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And the score is done by Ennio Morricone, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's an Italian composer. He did a lot of spaghetti westerns, but it's so minimalist, but so great. And it just builds an insane sense of dread. Adds to that feeling of isolation being at that outpost in Antarctica. And specifically, there's the most famous songs called Humanity, parts 1 and 2. Part 1 is what plays over the opening title credits when you see the spaceship kind of crashing in Antarctica. But the part 2 is when you get that dun dun. And it just is very, very low, very minimalist, like I said, but it's a phenomenal score. And, The Thing is a movie that I, will talk about given any opportunity to do so. So that's one that I had. Anyone else?
Right on.
Cool.
Did you miss a question about the do you prefer scores or soundtracks? Did we not get there yet?
Well, I feel like we kind of covered that a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, so we can do that one. Kat, you can start. So so do you prefer, because this we're about to roll into, a different section of this. So not specifically scores, but if you have a favorite horror soundtrack, which I have a couple that we could talk about here. But yeah, so Kat, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the scores, the soundtracks? What do you like?
I think I like the scores, except for obviously the example for Us with I Got 5 on it is a different type of way that they play with a soundtrack versus a score. But I think scores are just kind of more creative, and it's so funny because I feel like back in the day, like so many artists used to actually record songs for movies, and I forget that because I feel like now it's not they kind of do, but not as much. You don't see it as much, like even in like Twister. Like Twister, half the movies in there they recorded for Twister, and I was like, really? Like,
fun fact about the Twister soundtrack: "Humans Being" by Van Halen.
Right.
The last song they actually recorded together as a band, Van Hagar. They broke up shortly after, and it was a direct result of that song. There was some disagreement and infighting in the band between how that song should have been written, which I think that song is great. But actually, Twister has an awesome soundtrack.
Oh yeah, but it's kind of backwards now. I feel like a lot of directors just pick songs to go with movies instead of creating songs for movies.
Yeah, it's rare. It's definitely rare when you get songs that are recorded specifically for movies nowadays. Yeah. But Shauna, what about you? You have a preference between scores and or soundtracks?
So yeah, I kind of have a pretty strong opinion about this. I prefer movies to have a really good score. I think it really it adds to the piece of artwork that a film is to have a good score that matches up with it. But I think if you can pull off having a soundtrack, having songs that are actually songs, if you can pull it off and you got the right genre and you got the right feel for your movie, it's really super effective. And my favorite example of this is American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, that's a
Fantastic
good one.
soundtrack. And we have talked about this on You're Not Listening on our first Halloween episode. What's really cool about American Werewolf in London is all the songs in it. It's funny they didn't even use the song Werewolves in London, which would
I
be
know
so
that we talked about that on our American Werewolf one episode too. Yeah.
all of the songs have to do with the moon. They have something to do with the moon. Moon
Yep.
Dance, Bad Moon Rising, Blue Moon. It's all moon themed songs. Every song on that soundtrack, which is super cool that he chose to do that. And where they place those songs in the movie are damn near perfect. I told my dad, I think the scene where he's like in the nurse's flat and he's bored and they're playing Bad Moon Rising right before he changes for the first time. I think that's a near perfect scene. I just think it's just done so well, and that song is so perfect for that. And it's funny, and it just works really well. So if you can have the right feel for your movie, the right genre where it's kind of like horror comedy, if it works, or if you can work in a soundtrack that works really well, then it's super effective. A lot of times in these lower budget horror movies, they'll do that. They'll use like indie artists and they'll put in like some heavy metal songs and stuff because it's like they're trying to cram this like tough, dark death metal type feel in, and it just feels so cheap, and it just does not work. But some movies do it really well. I mean, Rob Zombie does a pretty good job in some of his films of adding a soundtrack, but if you can do it right, it's really good, but I definitely prefer scores. That's the long story long.
Yeah, no, I agree with. So I'm actually not even a huge fan of Zombie's films, but I am a fan of his music, and he does strike a good balance. But I think that was very well said. I am inclined to agree with you there. That I think scores are more important, but if you can find that good balance of songs and score, I think that's a huge element to any successful film.
Yeah, and
Andrew,
the other thing is when films that generally have like a really good score, or they don't have a lot of songs, but they incorporate some songs, like I Got Five on it, in Us, and a lot of times some of these really creepy movies, they're using really old songs. For example, in Insidious, they use what's that creepy song in Insidious?
Tiptoe by the window.
Tiptoe.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was a real song back in the day. Like that was a song.
Yeah,
And it's now when you listen to it, it's so freaking creepy.
it
and
is
it's
so
perfect.
scary.
It is so perfect for that scene with the lipstick face demon when he's in his doing his little sewing machine, whatever he's doing.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like it's perfect for that scene. It works so well, and it's so creepy. So
Yeah.
like if you can choose the right song and put it in the right place, you'll nail it. But it's not easy to do.
Or like Mr. Sandman on Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that's another good one. Excellent points. Andrew, what about you? Do you have a preference?
I prefer, as far as horror movies go, it's a score.
Yeah.
Soundtracks, I feel like, are fine for like comedies and stuff like that, rom-coms, and just in general, because you're not expecting this theatrical explosion of art and music and cinematography. Like, I feel like the best compliment to a good visual effect is something made just for that reason, just for that. Like, my biggest thing, it's not even a horror movie, but I always go back to Interstellar because I fucking love that movie. And that score by Hans Zimmer evokes such emotion from me when I'm watching that movie that it makes that movie a lot more dramatic than it probably really is. And I feel like if you can do that with music and involve it in a movie and give it that other depth or layer to it, then it just drives home the point that the filmmaker wants to make even more so than you could with any soundtrack, or by just picking 10 songs that you like and putting them in a movie. It just makes a huge difference if you're able to do that. And
yeah, I know you love Interstellar. I feel a similar way about the Inception score that Hans Zimmer wrote. Inception is very, very powerful music. I think it's awesome. That time song, awesome. Gives me chills.
Yeah. Douche chills. Love
Yeah,
it.
douche chills. All right, so let's talk a little bit about soundtracks here, Kat, because I know you have some good ones here for this. So obviously, very stark difference between the two. I do agree. I think we're all in agreement that scores are probably more important if you're looking for horror. It looks like some of the people watching agree with us as well. Anthony, a score is the ultimate concept album. The evolution of soundtracks have led to them being a direct marketing piece as opposed to complementing a film. Extremely well said. But, Kat, I know you have a soundtrack. Now, I feel like back in like the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of horror movies were doing the thing, Kat, like you said, where people were writing songs specifically for a particular movie. And there's something special about that. Kat, what one did you have? What made your list for this?
Oh, so this is kind of out of left field, but this CD never left my car. Was House of Wax, 2005.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's Disturbed, Deftones, Manson's on there. I mean, I would blast that CD in my car almost all the time because the bass in it was awesome. But I mean, all this, like every single song was great. I loved it. It was great. I mean, the movie was okay. I mean,
yeah, not a classic.
Who doesn't want to watch Paris Hilton get murdered? But I mean,
yeah.
But it was awesome.
Apparently you do.
I mean,
the one thing that I remember from that movie is the scene where someone reaches up from the floor and cuts the Achilles of someone.
Oh,
that is literally the only thing that I remember from that movie. That stuck with me. I felt that. Ugh.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That was bad. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a good soundtrack, though. I looked it up today when you sent it over to me, and that's some good tunes. Good tunes.
Yeah, totally.
Queen of the Damned, that movie, not a great movie, but the soundtrack's friggin' awesome. I think Jonathan Davis from Korn wrote a lot of that. If I can find my notes here.
Right for you.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, that one had a lot of similar artists, but then a lot of that, like, late 90s, early 2000s new metal. But Deftones, nice. I love. They're my favorite band. Deftones, Korn, Static X, Papa Roach, Linkin Park, Manson, Disturbed, and Queen of the Damned. So,
wow.
Give you another one though. I think this soundtrack holds up extremely well even to this day, and probably not a horror movie. I would say it's probably horror adjacent and has some scary elements to it, and it's just a fucking awesome movie, and that is The Crow. And obviously, famous for some darker reasons. Obviously, what happened to Brandon Lee was terrible. And there's actually an awesome episode of, oh shit, Kat, what was the name of that? Cursed Films. Cursed Films. It's a little documentary series on Shudder that we watched. And there's an episode on The Crow with what happened to Brandon Lee. And it's such a sad story. It sucks. But it's a good movie. But the soundtrack is phenomenal. It has 9 Inch Nails covering Dead Souls. Has Burn by The Cure, which is an awesome song. Big Empty by Stone Temple Pilots. And you also have some songs from Rage Against the Machine, Violent Femmes, Helmet, Pantera, Jesus and Mary Chain. So that is an awesome soundtrack that I still listen to this day. The Crow. That is an awesome one. Shaun, you got one?
I'm looking at my stack of DVDs over here to see if I can pick anything out.
We can come back to you if you want.
Shaun, I love your little gremlin. Your little gizmo over there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no.
Andrew, anything?
My big one is American Werewolf because it's such. It's such an extensive soundtrack. But there's some. I just had one. Zombieland, I think, had some songs in it.
Zombieland is definitely a good one.
Lost Boys is the one I was thinking of. Lost Boys has some pretty crazy.
Yeah, I forgot about Lost Boys. That's a good one too. Yeah. Andrew, anything stick out to you? Soundtracks?
With us, it was kind of that. I couldn't think of any I didn't really get into it too deep, so I didn't really.
All right.
It's hard because a lot of the horror movies with like actual soundtracks are just not great.
I don't know if it's in any horror movies, but it should be. Is Lullaby by The Cure. I love that song.
Yeah, I love The Cure in general. So give me The Cure in any movie. It brings it up a level for me. So
another one actually throw in there again, more horror adjacent. It's not really horror. It's a little bit more kind of cerebral. Is Donnie Darko. It has a really
Ooh,
good soundtrack.
yeah.
It's funny you bring that up. We were actually talking about Donnie Darko last week or the week before because they were talking about potentially doing a sequel to it all these years later. Apparently, there's
I'd
been
watch
some
it.
talks of a Donnie Darko sequel. Yeah, I'd check it out.
Don't ruin it.
I know. Don't ruin it, please. Just don't ruin it. Hopefully, it's a good idea. Can I give you guys one more score that I just remembered that I had in my list that nobody brought up that I think is particularly memorable? And
Sure.
that 28 Days Later.
Oh man, how did
28 Days Later has awesome music. I specifically had
Argan love that.
Yeah, so there's a song on there called "In the House in a Heartbeat," written by John Murphy, and this is the scene most famous in the movie where Jim, who's played by Cillian Murphy, is kind of turned into this feral, psychotic, animalistic mental case, and he's running around that house, killing all the soldiers, trying to save the two girls that are in the house, and there's that crazy eye gouging scene. But that piece of music is awesome. And that whole soundtrack, I just feel like does a really good job of adding to the emptiness of that movie and just kind of makes it feel a little bit more lived in and realistic. Like I also specifically remember like the scene when they're going grocery shopping, like through that abandoned grocery store. There's like some little weird music that's in there, but the music in that movie stuck with me as well. So yeah, 28 Days Later is a phenomenal movie all around, but I think the music in that is a high point as well.
The music in the grocery store is like happy.
Yes, it's a nice contrast to the dark nature of
I love
the movie.
when movies do that.
Yeah.
We could do this all night. The last one I'm going to throw out there is the dance club scene from Blade or Blade 2, maybe in the beginning of Blade 2.
Oh, that's a deep cut. I like that one. I haven't seen Blade 2 in forever. Is that the one with Ryan Reynolds or Jessica Biel, or is that Blade Trinity? That's the third
Blade
one, right?
2 in the beginning of the movie when they're in it's like a vampire dance club and the sprinklers start shooting blood out all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Whatever song is playing during that scene is an absolute banger. Just throwing it out.
Okay. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but definitely. All right, guys. Well, I think we covered some good stuff, and I know we're over the hour time period here, so we should probably wrap this up a little bit. But anyone else have any final thoughts on anything they want to add before we kind of we put a bow on this bitch?
Wrap that bow tight. I got nothing.
Okay, Shaun, go ahead.
I just want to say my show is called You're Not Listening because our whole theory is people hear music, but they don't listen to it. And so for the audience of this show, I would really just urge everyone, when you're watching a movie, when you're taking in a good horror movie that you either have seen a million times or you're seeing for the first time, try to pay attention to the music, because I think you'll get a whole lot more out of the movie if you are actively listening to everything that's happening, not just the dialogue, not just the sound production, sound design, but the music as well. Is a huge part of horror cinema, bigger than almost any other genre out there of film. And I really want to encourage your listeners to really try to actively listen to music when you're watching these movies. It's not something you normally think of. So that's where I come from. That's the world I live in. So just wanted to get that out there.
It's an excellent point. And actually, I like that you have that line that you say at the beginning of every episode. If you haven't heard of these songs or if you don't like these songs, then you're not listening. And you tie in the name of your show. I think that's a great way of getting the point of your show across at the beginning of everything. I like that you guys do that. It's a very good point.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. So, Shauno, I guess if people want to follow your shows, social media, etc., where can they find you? Plug away, my friend.
For sure. We are on social media. We are on Instagram and Twitter at YNL Podcast. YNL stands for You're Not Listening. And if you can find us on Facebook, we're just the name of the show, You're Not Listening, a music podcast. If you want to email us directly, you can email us at notlisteningpod@gmail.com and search for us on wherever you listen to podcasts. Where podcasts are podcasts, we are there. Subscribe, rate, review, leave us a note, and check it out.
I would highly encourage that you guys go and do that. Check out Shauno's show; it is phenomenal. And I would say that's a great point. I always forget to bring it up at the end of our shows, but reviews are probably one of the best things you can do for any podcast. So I would say if you have time to drop us a review on iTunes or wherever it is, or drop a review for You're Not Listening, anywhere that you can review us, it would go a long way. But here's where you can find us on social media. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Just go on there and search for America's Hometown Horror. And you can tweet at us at Hometown Horror, and you can find us on Instagram at Hometown Horror Pod. And you can also drop us a line at hometownhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. And as Shaun said, you can pretty much find our show anywhere where podcasts are found, specifically Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Amazon Music, wherever else, whatever other 10 million podcast platforms are on there, we're probably on there. So go on there, give us a follow, give us a listen. Thanks again for tuning into the very first ever live episode of America's Hometown Horror. I think it came out pretty great, and I'm happy with everything that we discussed. I think this is a lot of fun. Good topic. And Shaun, thanks again for hopping on, man. Love to collaborate with you again sometime soon.
Thanks for having me. Let me know when you're starting to gear up for Alien Day, because I'm on board for that.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have to happen. So that'll be in April, and we'll get you back on. And hey, I'd love to talk some music with you on your show too. So we'll talk.
Absolutely, man.
All right, folks.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to everyone who watched live and commented. Say goodbye to your listeners, folks. Give them a nice wave, huh?
Bye, guys. Bye, Shaun. It was good to see you.
Nice meeting you, Shaun.